Welcome to another episode of the Transforming Lives podcast panel. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Pankhurst.
And I'm Sharmin Prince.
And we are here to solve the problems of the world one episode at a time.
Be sure to smash that subscribe button, review, and download. And don't forget to invite a friend.
Let's go. Welcome to the next episode of Transforming Lives podcast panel. And we are all here today, which is great and fun. Sometimes it's a couple of us and sometimes it's all of us. So it's nice to see everybody's face today. This is cool. Today we are going to talk about the 5 love languages. And before we start, we do our usual, just a little grounding so that we're all present and we can all value our time together and our time with our listeners. Just taking a deep breath together and just feeling our presence and valuing this gift of time we have to spend with each other. And just exhale your day, exhale your stress. Put away your to-do list, put away your menu and your grocery lists and your laundry list of things to do, and just be with us as much as we want to be with you. Just one deep inhale, hold it at the top, and just let it go. And here we are. So I'm going to say I'm a stranger to this. So I'm going to, all right, we talked about doing this topic and I had never even heard of the 5 love languages. So I'm going to let you who know more about it, talk about it. And I know we've all kind of done our quizzes. So let's take it away.
Well, I think first the thing that we should do is just hit highlights of what the 5 love languages are for anyone out there who has never even heard of it. So, you probably already realize this, right? Everybody has things that make them feel good or things that don't make them feel good. And that's different for everyone. So there is a book and a bunch of different courses and questionnaires out there about the 5 love languages. And they're the things that make you feel good. So the 5 categories of the love languages are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And most people have obviously a combination, but 1 or 2 of them are probably more so than the other ones. And the secret is figuring out what your love language is, but also figuring out what your partner's love language is, because they're not always the same. And probably most often they aren't. And the other cool thing is there's questionnaires and surveys you can do in there with the love languages in relation to your children, your partners, your other relationships, not just your romantic partner, but anyone that you have a relationship with. So we are going to explore this exciting topic today. And Sharmin, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about what you found out about your love languages, and did it surprise you, excite you, concern you?
Thank you for asking that question. It's not the first time I did it. This is like my 4th time doing it. And one of the things that I noticed, my percentages might change, but the order of my love language remains the same. The percentages may change 5 or 10. The first time it was 40. And when I did it this time, my number 1, which is physical touch, is 35%. And it ranged between 35 and I think once it was 42%. So my number 1 is always physical touch. And quality time is my number 2. For quality time, I think I ranked between 32% and 35% in all 4 when I look at, compare the 4. Words of affirmation has always been below 20% for me. And acts of service, 15%, the 15% range. And I guess I don't like gifts. I don't like receiving gifts because that's always below 10%. And it's amazing because it's really true to who I am.
Awesome. Awesome. And what about you, Kate?
Oh, I absolutely love the 5 languages of love, or the 5 love languages. And I love when I see friends with their partners and seeing how they express love. And sometimes their partner gets it and sometimes their partner doesn't, because their love language is so different. I'm thinking of some really great friends where I know her love language was receiving gifts, but how he expressed loves was acts of service, and she just couldn't get it. And my top love language always is acts of service. And I have 2 really funny stories that I have to share when this was a conversation in our house this week on love language. And also next was quality time tied with physical touch. And then I'm right along there with Sharmin for affirmation, and my gifts are always under 10%. So I thought that was quite funny. So the 2 stories that I love to share, one, I was telling my youngest, and she's 13, and she said, "Oh, well, can I do this?" And I already 100% know where she's going to be, but I was like, yeah, of course. And I said, my top one is acts of service. Like, when I open the fridge and I'm out of almond milk, and your dad has already gone to the store and there's almond milk in the fridge. And her face was like horrified. And she's like, that's like bare minimum. And I was like, excuse me, what? And then this next that I have to share, I don't know that my partner would want me sharing this, but I just have to share because it's so funny. As I got him to do the test as well, or the quiz, and so after he did it, he's like, "Oh, acts of service was the first for me," and I was like, "Yeah, me too. Acts of service, like acts of service." And he was like, "Are you talking about sex?" And I'm like, "No, I'm talking about the dishes, like doing the dishes." Like it was just so funny.
Oh, I love that.
That's too funny.
Okay. And Cheryl, this was all new to you. So how did you find going through and doing the questionnaire, and what did you find out about yourself?
Well, doing the questionnaire was really strange for me because I felt like, when you get your eyes tested, is it 3 or is it 2? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 3? Is it 5? And some were like, I didn't have a hard yes for a lot of the choices. So I got, what shocked me, words of affirmation was my highest, and receiving gifts was my next. So one was 30% for affirmation and 23% for receiving gifts. And then touch, quality time, and service were all about the same, 17, 15, which I was floored because I found that when I was looking at the questions about gifts, I'm not a big gift person or a material person, and my partner doesn't buy jewelry or big gifts or anything. So when I'm looking at the gifts, what I think I valued in the gift question was a token of something because they were thinking about you, or those gifts. Yes, though, and I'm picking those. And words of affirmation was funny because I haven't had him do it yet, and I'm going to, because I thought he would be like way up here with words of affirmation because he's a pleaser, and he likes to know, he's done well. He really likes that confirmation. But I thought it was funny that even when I was doing like touch and quality time and service, I think because he's already very affectionate. And he already does a lot of stuff around the house. Like he does a lot of the acts of service, and we spend a lot of time together because he works from home, and I do too now. That, do I value that based on the situation now, or I'm just so used to it that, do you know what I mean? That's what I found really hard to decipher. And even even when I was answering things like, I don't know, like even touch, like we're always holding hands or we're always beside each other. And I guess if that didn't happen, would I value it more? Probably. Or, you know, if he didn't do things around the house, yes, I would value it more. So I almost feel like, there's a difference between, do I value it or do I appreciate it because it's already happening? I found that really, really weird to answer. And I did it twice. So words of affirmation have always been on top. The gifts was a little closer to the top as well. But the touch, quality time, and service was always like low. And I also think for me, acts of service, I am fiercely independent. So I don't want all this stuff done for me because I can do it myself. Thank you very much. So as much as I appreciate it, I don't know, it's hard for me to say I don't appreciate it, but it's, you know, I can put my own gas in and I can fix my own tire and I can go do, and I can lift all the heavy stuff. I don't need you to do that. So I think it's a different place in my life. Whereas 20 years ago, this would have been very different for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that that's really an interesting comment too, that it can change over time, right? Like you said, 20 years ago, it would have been very different. And because we all change and evolve, but probably our core is very similar. But as you say, part of it is the circumstance and what is going on in your life. And that may change what you're valuing at the time. I also have done it multiple times. And it always comes out almost the same. You know, physical touch is around 30%, 28, 30%. And then the other ones are almost all equal. So it's, you know, the touch is a little bit more. The lowest is always the receiving gifts, but they're all pretty tightly packed. And so I've always found that interesting. And I just, randomly asked my husband, what do you think are my love languages? Like I read about what the 5 were and what do you think they are? And, he got it pretty close. And then I asked him, what do you think yours are? Because I tried to get him to do the questionnaire, but he wasn't interested in doing the questionnaire. So it was like, okay, let me just give you what the 5 categories are and tell me what you think you are. And I knew, my thought was that it was, for him, the words of affirmation were the biggest thing. And then it would be the physical touch and the quality time. And, and that's, what he saw for himself as well. So I found that interesting.
I love to add to yours too, Cheryl, that I as well sometimes like really was like, is this really who I am? Is this really my love language? And so how I thought of it as they were going through my head, I was like wiping the counters in the kitchen. And what I really put was like, would I want to see a ring on my finger, or would I want to know that like he's gassed the car and cut the lawn? And that really like cleared it up for me, was like, yeah, no, I love acts of service.
I found it really interesting too, Cheryl, when you mentioned about the gifts, receiving gifts, because I think you really brought something to light, which is, sometimes think of receiving gifts as, okay, it has to be all these like big things. And it's like, oh, if I like to receive gifts, like I'm a bad person because it's big things. But no, like for me, like you say, like a little card or a note or a flower or just something that, or bringing me a bubble tea or something that shows that my partner was thinking of me and brought me a little something to say, hey, you're on my mind. It doesn't have to be big gifts. Now, I'm sure there are some people that that's what their language is. They need big and fancy, and that's just not what mine is. But realizing that the receiving gifts doesn't necessarily mean that it's big gifts. It can be those little things that, as you say, that show that you care. Just like when we were kids and we would make things for our parents, and they'd always say, oh, the best gifts are the homemade gifts. And I remember thinking as a kid, oh, what a line of crap. They hate that. I wish I could buy them something great. And then you get older and you have kids and you realize, oh my God, no, it really is those things that they make because they're from the heart. And that's what makes your heart sing. And those are the things you treasure and keep.
Yeah. And that is what it all boils down to, right? Mitzy, as you said there, like it is a token of like he was thinking of me when he picked this flower outside, or he was thinking of me when he took this picture on his camera to send to me. But when you really, for me, when I think about all the things, they are little things. Like when I said I open the fridge and there's my almond milk, and, you know, my kid's saying that's the bare minimum, but really that's like, oh my God, you realize that I was out of milk and it was there for my coffee. And then touch, right? It's the touch when you're just doing whatever. And there's a hand on your shoulder or someone's grabbing for your hand, and then affirmations are little things like, hey, I love you. And so I just love that it is, I think sometimes whatever media, movies, whatever can make like acts of love have to be huge. And really for me, it is those little moments.
Yeah, I think that really is very true, is, you know, it's not just big things, it's the little things. And it is those everyday things that you feel more, especially the longer you're in a relationship, right? I mean, because when you're in a new relationship, it's hot and heavy and exciting and everything, but, you know, and passion is fabulous. But if you're going to be with somebody 15, 20, 25, 30 years, things are going to ebb and flow. You'll have health issues, you'll have financial issues. Yeah. So it's, what are those things that you hold on to and keep going and make each other aware of, to keep that love alive as it transforms and goes through different stages in the relationship.
And let's say we're not in a relationship. Like, how does this work when you're not in a relationship?
That's a really good question.
Sharmin's on mute.
I guess your love language remains the same. It's amazing that you asked that question, because when Mitzy just mentioned about being in a relationship for 30 years, I was thinking, does your love language change? If the longer you are in a partnership, would your love language change, or would it remain the same? Because I mean, if you're single, I'm single, and you know, when I'm in a relationship, physical touch is important to me. Quality time is important to me. At one time, I thought it was codependency, right? Before taking seriously, before taking the love language, because you want the quality time, you want to spend quality time with your partner, and you, in your head, you're like, is it codependency? So after taking the love language, it, you know, it quieted that voice that told me that it was codependency and it's just quality time. And, you know, all 4 times that I took the test, quality time is always my number 2 language. So the question I am asking is, would our love language change if we're in law, if we're together 20, 30 years, or would it remain the same?
I think it's probably different in different relationships. But I think that as you go through the course of a relationship over time, probably some things might get a little easier or a little bit more difficult. For example, you know, as people age, maybe, you know, physical touch is a big thing. Having a great sex life is a great thing, but maybe as you age, maybe one partner has health issues and they can't be as active in that area, but you can still show affection. You can still be romantic and touch and hold each other, even if you know, if some of the other things can't occur. So I think it's so important to be aware and to keep those things alive, because I think that it's an easy trap to fall into too, right? You're going to bed and, you know, you're really tired, it's late, and you don't maybe reach over and kiss your partner and say goodnight or something like that, right? And then you could almost get out of the habit of making it a priority. So we always have to be thinking, what do I need? What does my partner need? And looking to make each other happy long-term, because otherwise relationships will fall apart.
And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, all of these is your ability to receive. And if you have a tough time receiving, and this is what I'm thinking, whereas like service, I have a tough time that having somebody do something for me. Like I can just do it myself. I can buy my own gifts. I can tell myself I'm doing a good job. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's this, it's such an issue, I think, for a lot of women, is the ability to just receive without feeling like I need to take a turn, I'm keeping score. I'm looking at all of these going, all of this is about the ability to receive. None of this is about giving, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the ability to receive, because that was probably something that I struggled with as well, is that being able to receive and outside of love language and everything, even just like in life and in work, I have a hard time asking for help. I'm always like, I can make it happen if it is to be, it's up to me. But I also know you need a team and you need a group, just like we have here, right? But it was a skill I had to learn and develop because it didn't come naturally to me from some of the things that happened in my childhood and stuff. So that was a thing that I had to work on within myself.
And I'd love to share acts of service just because that's mine. And I'm also a do everything myself, don't ask for help kind of a being. And it isn't, and that's what the language is that you don't ask. It's that it's just done. It's that somebody sees that the dishwasher needs to be emptied, or somebody sees that the floor needs to be vacuumed, right? And it's not that I ask, it's that when I come back, the floor is vacuumed by anybody who lives in this house. And so that is, that to me really is what acts of service is. And it's not like, some people say, I vacuumed the floor for you. It's like, you didn't flip and vacuum the floor for me. Everybody walks on that floor, right? But so that's what I find acts of service is that somebody, because I don't know about you, but I sure feel like I notice everything in the house that needs to be done all the time. And so, and I mean, I always go back to unhealed childhood trauma and how it manifests in adulthood, but the not worthiness, not being seen, not being heard, and your reality not being validated. So if my reality of that really needs to be done isn't being validated, then those are old wounds that show up. So somebody else seeing that without me having to say a word, I just find that's where I feel this love language comes from or connects to.
It's a really good point.
Yeah, and I think that they all blend into each other too, right? Like, the quality time and the physical touch as an example, right? So you're spending time together, maybe you're watching TV, maybe you're going for a walk, but maybe you're holding hands. So like it's sort of two of those categories are kind of being met at the same time. And maybe that one of you is the quality time and one is the physical touch, and now you're achieving both with that, or right. So and I think it's really to your point about if you're single or if you're a parent, looking at your other relationships outside of your life partner kind of relationships, and how the languages of love work in those languages with your best, with your friends, with your children, with your coworkers. How do you make someone feel good about themselves and feel appreciated, and what is their language and what do they need that will help them feel amazing, and what do you need, and educating each other.
It's amazing that you said that, because after completing the love language for the first time, I have this friend that we attended high school together, but we're always getting into an impasse. And I had the discussion before taking the love language with her. And I said to her, maybe what you're expecting from me as a friend, I can't give because I don't have it. And she said to me, that's bullshit. You're selfish. Yeah, no, that's okay. She said, no, you're selfish. And what she was expecting from me is definitely not my thing. I don't give gifts. I don't like to receive it, so I don't give it. So the love language, what I understand from it, and is that whatever relationship you have, whatever relationship you're in, be it an intimate relationship or just a platonic friendship, these languages helps you to navigate your relationships in a healthy manner. Because now if I'm getting into a friendship, I'll tell people what I can give, my limitations. If you're looking for words of affirmation, I am not the person that is gonna stroke your ego and validate you all the time. No, you wouldn't get that from me. But I will spend time with you as a friend. I will go places with you. I may purchase a card, but I am not going to promise you I'll give you gifts. So I encourage everyone, my friends, have you taken the love language? You should take that quiz because it helps you to understand yourself better. And even when I'm talking to other friends on the phone and I'm listening, I have this particular friend, he loves words of affirmation. And he didn't realize it. And after talking to him, I said, have you taken the love language quiz? You should. And he called me back immediately and he said, thank you, because it put a lot of things in my life into perspective.
I'm gonna get my partner to do it.
Yeah.
I actually want to get the kids to do it. Yeah, I think you're right, because I don't want to. I think I was so wrong with mine. I don't want to even guess, because I think I just could really get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting to me, because if I just looked at this list and didn't read, didn't go through the quiz, I would never have picked this for me. So to think that, yeah, I don't want to guess somebody else's now. I want to know what theirs comes out with, because that's really interesting to me.
Yes, if only we could go up to everybody and say, here, take this, and that way I'll know a lot more about you.
Yeah.
As you can see, my cat's love languages is bringing gifts and quality time. He's brought me 4 gifts while we've been doing the podcast. He's been bringing me little mice and little stuffed things and sitting on my lap because he wants some quality time.
That's funny. So where do we go with this? Like what? Like I'm gonna have my partner do this, and I'm gonna have a few people I know do this. But where do we go with this? Like, so we know now what our love language is, and what happens if we get into relationships or friendships or whatever with people, we can't give them what they need. What does that mean?
Being honest. I had 2 of my friends and their couples. I sat with them and all 3 of us did it. And it was amazing that she loves gifts and he loves to receive gifts, but he doesn't give gifts. Right? And it was amazing because now we're sitting there and they're saying, well, that's where all the problems comes in our relationship, because when you go shopping, I expect you to buy something for me and you would not buy it for me. And they were able to understand their relationship a little bit better. And I think in our relationships, I know that I can't touch all of my friends, because in the past I would say I'm very touchy-feely. I can't touch all of my friends because I understand about trauma. So I'm very careful with that. But I like to I would touch my sisters. I remember that I would hug my sisters and we would walk down the street hugging each other. Physical touch is important to me. Quality time is important to me. So I can tell my friends, I like to spend quality time with my friends. What do you like and what do you expect from our friendship? I ask those questions because I have had too many, people have so much expectations from our relationship, and there are things that I can't do for you. I may not be able to do. I don't like stroking people's ego. I don't like everything you do. Oh, that's so nice. You look so pretty, even when you don't look pretty. I can't do that. So
Yeah.
So I would encourage everyone to take the quiz and really understand yourself and have open and honest discussions with those that you're in relationship with.
Yeah, I think that that's a really, really good point. And also I'd encourage people to take the quizzes that are the other quizzes that aren't specifically for romantic relationships, but for your other relationships too, because the results may be very different depending on the type of relationship as well, of course. And like you, Sharmin, I mean, I'm a hugger by nature. And so, man, oh man, COVID was hard on me because I see you if you're in my life, like I'm a hugger. And it was challenging. And I couldn't be with a partner who didn't like to be held or wouldn't hold my hand or wasn't okay with my, wrapping my arms around them and giving them a kiss, or, just having my hand on their back when we're walking or something like that, because I need that connection. I bought, one of the other ones, they call it kinesthetic, which is also that touch. Like, some people like it's auditory, hearing, and kinesthetic. I've always, the kinesthetic, the touchy feely kind of thing. But your point, Sharmin, too, about that, asking people what they need, because even though they might not know what their love language is or how to express it, they will know that, oh, I like to be touched, or I hate being hugged, or I love receiving little gifts, or oh my God, like I don't like that, like don't try and buy my affection, like I don't like everybody's different, and it's being aware that helps you so much, is just being aware of it.
Yeah,
Well, I think that comes right back down to the gift of self-awareness. But I mean, that's what I live and breathe, and what I love to support people with. And also, the more self-aware we are, like how confidently Sharmin was able to say, I can't give you this, right? I really understand this is what my love language is, and this is what, this is how I communicate. This is what means love to me. And these things just aren't even on my radar. So me not give, if I just think of, and I'm so happy Ken did it, because we've been in October or November, we'll have been together like 27 years, and our numbers were almost identical. So to me, it just kind of makes sense, right? I'm not sitting here waiting for presents, because how hard, right? Like affirmation notes, when I think he was like 3%. So how would that even be in his realm of that is something that someone might like, when that's not even in his wheelhouse. So again, that gift of awareness to a romantic couple, to a mom and her children, to workmates, to whomever is in your world. And then also I think of my girl who's so outspoken and saying, like, that's bare minimum. So if her partner is acts of service and is doing all these services, and she's sitting there waiting for the gifts, like that is just such a mismatch.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That really brings a good point, right? Is that, if there is that disconnect, and if you don't know how to express it, then that can create a lot of tension with any relationship. The other thing that was interesting is when I asked my husband, what he thought his was, because he unfortunately wasn't willing to sit down and do the quiz at the time. But when I first asked him about it, his initial reaction is, how does he like to show affection? And so when I first asked him, it was like from the standpoint of, here's the things that I like to do to show someone that I care about them, versus, what are the things that make him feel loved and stuff, right? So then we ended up with an interesting conversation about that as well. because that's a great point that Kate brought up, which is, if one partner is always doing this, whatever this might be, lots of physical touch because they think that that's how you express love, and their partner really doesn't like that, but needs tons of words of affirmation and they're getting none, they're gonna not feel loved, even though their partner is trying to show them love, but they're not speaking the same language.
That is super interesting to me, because now I'm thinking of a relationship I was in where if I did the test then, I would have said acts of service would have been 90% because it was never happening. And I started getting angry and I started keeping score. So I'm working all day. I get home, there's nothing done. There's no dinner. There's no help. And this was going on and on and on. And I would ask for these things and then it still wasn't happening. So then, you check out. I'm not asking anymore because I don't care anymore. And so this is really interesting to me, because back then I probably would have ranked acts of service way up there. So now here's the trauma. I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm coming into the next relationship going, I don't need you to do anything because I'm just going to be disappointed.
Yeah, we bring with us the hurt and wound from previous relationships into our new relationships, and also have to work through that. I remember when my husband and I were first together, actually we were leaving for our honeymoon, and there was, I don't know, like a hockey final or something on, and he wanted to see it. And I said, okay, well, so why don't you just watch that and we'll leave like 3 hours later to go drive and do what we're going to do. And he's like, no, it's fine. Go. I said, why? Like, you really want to see it? Like, I don't care. Just go ahead and watch the game and then we can go. He's like, it's going to come back and bite me in the ass. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he says, oh, I know what's going to happen is you're saying it's okay, but it's really not. You're going to be mad at me and you're going to keep being upset with me about it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If I tell you that I'm fine with it, I'm fine with it. Well, as we had a conversation in his first marriage, his ex would say, yes, it's okay, do something. And then, she would drone on and on and on about, oh yeah, well, you knew I didn't really want you to do that. I was just trying to, be polite, but you never should have done that. You should have been smart enough to realize that that's not what I was really saying. And so he brought that trauma into our relationship, and it took a long time for him to realize that if I said, yeah, enjoy the game, I actually meant, yeah, enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's multiple times I have said, I'm not that person that you're concerned about right now. That's not me. So there'll be exactly the same conversations that come up in our relationship that are like blindside me, because I wouldn't do that. That's not who I am. But that is, again, carried over, and I have to remind them that's not me. That was the last one. But yeah, that's interesting that I kind of got goosebumps about that last relationship, thinking, okay, should have done this test maybe.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Cheryl. You mentioned that in that one previous relationship, like you were really not feeling any love because there weren't any acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look back at the relationship, do you think that person was trying to express love in a different way and they were speaking a different love language? Or do you just think there was, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, with hindsight and looking in a different way?
Well, you know what? I'd have to think about that, because I'm not sure. We weren't matched. We were not a good match. And it was one of those relationships that every time it moved forward, my stomach said, but I did anyway, because I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I didn't want another failed relationship. And it just compiled for me until the point where in my head, I check out a year before I check out. So when it's time to actually physically be done, I'm long done. I'm not worried about it. I'm long done. So is there, I don't think in that specific relationship, there was something he was giving that I wasn't accepting as his love language. I can't see it, but I probably have to think about it, but I am totally at fault with this. He wasn't good at service, and that's what I wanted at the time. And that was exactly what you're talking about, Kate. the dishwasher needs empty, or could you just start dinner, or could you like crack an egg, or, you know, whatever. And I was just, yeah, I would just started keeping score when I didn't like it. And I don't like myself for thinking that way now. I'm glad I'm learning this. I think we need to do a full show on self-awareness, Kate.
A whole life on self-awareness.
Okay. Maybe we can do it in sequels.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting too to maybe have a future episode where we do the love languages, as I say, for like the non-romantic partners, like one of the other quizzes, and kind of have a discussion around that, because as you say, so many people are not in partnered relationships and enjoying wonderful single lives. But of course, we all interact with people every day and have friends and family and even looking, you know, for example, our relationships with our parents, you know, what was the way that they expressed their love language to us versus what we wanted, and as they age, how we show it to them or they show it to us. Like, it would be interesting to kind of look at different types of relationships through the eyes of the love languages.
Yeah, that starts a whole new conversation in my head if I think about parents. So yeah, I think that would be great. So we wrap this up with any last words. Take the test, first of all.
Very insightful. Oh, and we will have in our show notes a link to some of the different books. There's several different books, and so we will have in our show notes a link so that you can go there and check it out, and you can go check out the quizzes. So you know what, check out your love language and get your partner, your friends, your family, and I think you'll find it very insightful into the relationships that you have and you want to have.
And if you have, you know, a girlfriend group or a girlfriend tribe, have a love language quiz party, and where everyone take the love language and share it with each other. So everyone in the group, in your tribe, knows each other love language, and I'm sure your relationships are going to be healthier.
So beautiful.
We'd love to hear from our listeners. I absolutely would love to hear from our listeners after you take the test, or if you've already taken the test, how you feel about it, and report back to us so we can talk further about this. This is really cool. Thank you all. Thank you all. And that's a wrap for the Transforming Lives podcast panel, where we strive to embrace, inspire, and empower our community.
Be sure to subscribe and download. Also, don't forget to leave a review and check the show notes for resources and contacts for all of us. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Thank you, Sharmin.
Thank you, Cheryl.